Since May, the BEA and OSEA have been negotiating with Bend schools on their contract for the 2023 to 2024 school year. There's a lot of discussion out there about what's going on. You may have seen posters from the BEA around town talking about what they're negotiating for. But comprehensive information is very hard to come by. So I did the hard work of looking through all the documents, doing all the math, and interviewing all the right people to put it all together. You might not have known, but the BEA isn't the only union negotiating with the district. There's also the OSEA. The difference is the BEA, or the Bend Education Association, represents what are known as certified employees. Certified employees are called that because they require a teaching certification. That means the BEA represents all the teachers. The OSCA, or the Oregon School Employees Association, in this case represents everybody else, what are known as classified employees. Bus drivers, cooks, IT staff, office staff, all those people. To understand the negotiations, we have to understand something that's been brought up a lot in the Portland teacher strike: how schools in Oregon are funded. Obviously, the first step is the legislature deciding the budget, which for this year was $10.2 billion. Now, that sounds like a lot of money, but as Superintendent Dr. Cook explained to me, that wasn't enough money. Oregon's quality education model says that they would need $11.9 billion to meet that standard, but $10.2 billion is all they got. When it comes to distribution to each of Oregon's school districts, they use a system called average daily membership weighted. What this system does is it takes the entire enrollment of a district and applies specific weighting to different types of students. The students that get this special weighting are English language learners, students in poverty, and students with special needs. And once that is plugged into a mathematical function, the budget is spat out. The average weighting per student in Bend schools is 1.15%, which is the lowest in Central Oregon, even though we have the biggest student body. Oregon schools are funded on what is known as a biennium, or over a period of 2 years. That means whatever budget the average daily membership weighted system spits out, you get 49% the first year and 51% the second year. The reason for this split is because naturally costs will increase over your second year. This year, 2023, the budget for Bend schools is $223 million. That means that if my math is correct, the total budget will be $455.1 million, and the budget for the next year will be $232 million. That means in terms of 2022 to 2023, the budget got an increase of $8.7 million. As well as that, the district carried over an excess of $5 million from the last year. That means their total extra spending is $13.7 million. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about the main points of the negotiations. And to get some perspective on that, let's talk to the Bulletin's education reporter, Noemi. So, can you explain a little bit about how the Portland teachers negotiations, how those negotiations broke down and caused the strike there?
So with Portland, of course, they're dealing with a lot of the same issues that are happening in Bend.
Mm-hmm.
Teachers are asking for smaller class sizes,
Mm-hmm.
safety, more compensation.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more so that people have their eyes on Portland because it is a possibility of what could happen here in Bend if the negotiations reach a stalemate. And there's a big gap between both their proposals. And same thing here with the proposal of 9.3% raise over 2 years on the district side, and then 21% over 2 years on the union side. And there is of course always the question of where is the money coming from? I know there's also some pandemic funding that is going to be ending.
Yeah.
And that will, I believe, necessitate budget cuts and possible layoffs.
Yeah.
That's a question I'm still working to answer, honestly, is where does each side think the money is going to come from?
Yeah, it's because in the Portland teacher strike, a lot of people are like, oh, the government's going to do something about it. They're not doing anything about it. They said they're not going to do anything about it
because like,
I mean,
Tina
even-
Kotek was saying that he'd given them all the money. Yeah.
And even the amount of money they received from the legislature over the next 2 years,
Yeah.
that 10.2 billion
Yeah.
is, I think it's actually slightly more than they expected to get,
Yeah.
even. So this magical number of this extra funding,
Yeah.
that doesn't seem to exist.
To put into perspective what the BEA is proposing, if we look at the pay scale and eliminate step 0, as both sides have agreed to, someone who makes $44,431 a year will now make $49,318. That is a degree more than inflation, especially if you look at the latest economic reports that show inflation is down. It would be great if teachers could get that kind of raise, because that's a really big raise. However, it seems to me mathematically that the district just can't afford it. However, the point the two are most far apart on is insurance benefits. The district's current proposal is a $50 a month increase in insurance contributions for the first year. However, the BEA wants that to be $412. That's a massive difference. I asked BEA President Sarah Barclay about why the difference was so big, and she said they want it to be a lot bigger because the district's increase in contributions hasn't been enough to keep up with insurance price increases, and that has caused Bend teachers' insurance to cost more than those of the surrounding districts. And she believes that by increasing it by this big amount, we'll get them ahead of the surrounding districts in terms of insurance costs, so that they can bring down insurance costs for Bend teachers. The district says their current proposal of a 5.4% raise, $50 a month increase in insurance contributions, and the normal raises that would happen for gaining more experience will cost them approximately $11.8 million. That's just $1.9 million shy of their $13.7 million available dollars. To make it even more difficult, those obviously aren't the only demands. There are a lot of other articles in the contract being negotiated. So I'll only go through a few that the BEA have mentioned in their communications, because those are the most important.
First is the demand for prep time. Originally, I thought this would mean reorganizing class periods. However, the BEA proposes two things. First is adding an additional 30 minutes of paid time at the beginning and end of school for teachers to work, as well as eliminating a lot of non-essential staff meetings, which take up a lot of teachers' time, and if removed, would give teachers a lot more time for prep work. Next is class size limits. How the BEA proposes this should work is not as a total number per class, but as a total number of students a teacher teaches over all their classes. This means that they would be compensated for every student over that total limit. Lastly, safety and behavior protocols. What's being talked about here is a more complete system for dealing with students who may have behavioral problems. The proposal is that there will be a system to quickly deliver support to students who need it, as well as a system for setting up a meeting with the student and the parent.
So finally, when will an agreement be reached? Well, both sides have scheduled meetings into December, and they hope to be done before 2024. If your concern is, will there be a strike? No, at least not in my opinion. Both sides are negotiating in good faith, and there are no major roadblocks as yet. So subscribe, because I'll be making a video when an agreement is made. Lastly, I'd like to talk about solutions. And I think a big solution for our situation here in Bend and also the situation in Portland is something suggested by Dr. Cook to me that I think will be very important. It's adding a weighting to the system that distributes state money to each of the school districts. That weighting would take into account the cost of living in a certain place. For instance, in Burns, a house may cost $300,000, while here it costs $500,000. And so I think there needs to be a metric that judges that, so that school districts who have that increased costs will be able to cover it, so that teachers can afford to live in the places that they teach. Another thing he suggested to me would be a local levy, tax to support the school district. He said that school districts of comparable sizes do have local levies, but we don't. So that's another thing to consider. Thank you so much for watching this video. It has been an ordeal to make. Thank you to Superintendent Cook. Thank you to Scott Maven at the district. Thank you to Sarah Barclay, BEA president. And if you're wondering why I didn't interview any teachers for this story, I tried to ask some of my teachers, but apparently the BEA has a rule against it. I don't know what that rule specifically is, but it is what it is. I hope you learned something from this video. I know I did. Bye!